Gas queues, fuel queues and power cuts. These have become an everyday occurrence in the average life of a Sri Lankan. There are those who believe that this is part of a global crisis. However, the ground situation in many other countries say otherwise. A very good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1, where the people come first. Let's start off with a look at your top stories for tonight.
Newsfirst headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Will the Malvana case against Basil continue? Decision to be announced on the 13th of May. Opposition reveals the underbelly of the deal to purchase electricity at a higher price. Bar Association of Sri Lanka goes to the Supreme Court seeking an order to solve the shortage in essential goods. UNP protests at Hyde Park. 43rd Brigade marches to Fort. TNA representatives meet with the President. Ranjan apologizes to court. Chinese Foreign Minister on a sudden visit to India.
Newsfirst headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Taking a look at the stories in detail now, the Attorney General's Department told the Gampaha High Court that no further evidence examinations will take place with regard to the case filed against Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa and Thirikumar Nadesan over a plot of land in Malvana. Senior Deputy Solicitor General Shanil Kularatna informed the court in this regard when the case was taken up at the Gampaha High Court today.
Basil Rajapaksa and Thirikumar Nadesan were indicted in the Gampaha High Court over the misuse of state funds for the purchase of a land in Dompe, Malvana and the construction of a luxurious house on the said plot of land. Testifying in court today, the first witness, Upul Kumara Ramavikrama, said that although he had provided information regarding the construction of the house on the plot of land to the Police Financial Crimes Investigation Division, he had not lodged a complaint. The Deputy Solicitor General who led the prosecution showed the witness a document and inquired as to if that was the statement he provided to the police FCID. The witness responded by saying that he had only provided a short statement. The witness added that he was not allowed to read the statement before he signed it and therefore his signature cannot be accepted. Senior Deputy Solicitor General Shanil Kularatna informed court that no further evidence examination will take place with regard to the case. The President's Counsel appearing for the suspects requested the court to release their clients from the charges as the prosecution has concluded the case. The judge ruled that a decision on whether or not the case can be continued will be delivered on the 13th of May. Meanwhile, speaking at an opening ceremony of a Saubhagya production village in Anuradhapura, Minister Namal Rajapaksa said the government has no need to strike any deals.
We have no ulterior motive. We will not step out of our policy statement. We do not do anything outside our policy statement. We will only act after explaining the facts. Therefore, we don't have a requirement to strike any underhand deals. The same people who said that they were striking deals with China back then are now saying that we are striking deals with the United States. These are also the same people who are saying that we are striking deals with India now. I don't understand the foreign policy of these people. What is their economic policy? Against the backdrop where a cabinet paper for the purchase of fuel from a South African company at 188 rupees without calling for any tenders was presented, there is now a risk of the power crisis in the country exacerbating. The Public Utilities Commission has warned that water for hydropower generation is only sufficient for 10 more days. Meanwhile, the power generation at the Keravala Pitia and the Uttru Janani thermal power station has been suspended. Media spokesperson of the Ceylon Electricity Board, Andrew Navamani, said that the power generations at the plants were suspended as they had run out of furnace oil. With the power generation at the Kerawalapitia power plant being suspended, the national grid has lost 270 megawatts of power, while the suspension of the power generation at the Utturu Janani power station has cost the national grid 24 megawatts.
The reservoirs that supply water to our hydropower plants do not have water. We don't have fuel for our thermal power plants, and even if all our power plants are operated, we have a shortage of about 300 megawatts. We are facing three crises. I believe we have held discussions and said that we can provide power if fuel is supplied to us from the CPC. Even if we purchase power from private power plants, they too run on fuel. Although we said that we will sign an agreement for the purchase of power from the private sector, the CPC must supply them with furnace oil. If the CPC does not supply us with fuel, that could be one of the reasons for the power cuts.
The Ceylon Electricity Board, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, the Minister of Power, the Ministry of Energy, the President's Office, the Prime Minister's Office, the Finance Ministry, along with all the banks involved, held discussions. We considered all the facts and decided that we will bring down one additional ship of fuel under the Indian credit line.
අද අලුතෙන් තීන්දුව කරා තවත් අපි ඉන්දියානු ණය ක්‍රමයේ යටතේ තවත් එක්නවක් වැඩිපුර ලබා ගන්න.
The supply of power was interrupted in 23 zones for a period of over 6 hours.
Power is being cut off under a scheme that they have named ABCD. They have created a system and they say that the power will be interrupted like this. We don't know what time they will cut power for us. We come to work by 8 and go home by 4:30. In the meantime, we don't have power. We don't have power to work at an office. We don't have power at home in the night, so we can't cook. They don't interrupt the supply of power in certain areas that they want and they make us suffer.
This pompous government that boasts a lot does not have an answer. They have divided the areas into zones and named it ABCD in a way that simple folk in the village cannot understand it. The times that the power is cut today changed tomorrow.
පස්සේ කපන්නයි කියලා. ඊට පස්සේ පැය පහක් කපනවා. රැයටත් කපනවා, දවල්ටත් කපනවා මුන්ට වෙලාවක් නැහැ. අද උදේ පැයයි වැඩ කරේ. එතකොට ඒ සේවකයන්ට පඩි නඩි ගෙවන්න ඕන. කරන්ට් ඔක්කොම කපනවා.
When the supply of power is interrupted, we cannot carry out our businesses. They interrupted the supply of power throughout the day. We can't engage in our business. People don't have money. Although the people are suffering at the hands of this serious power crisis, the deals being struck at the uppermost levels of the government are on an entirely different wavelength. They are trying to sign a deal with a South African company as a solution to the fuel shortage in the country. But this South African company is not involved in the fuel sector. Minister Namal Rajapaksa has recommended that this deal be considered. The most detrimental aspect of this deal is that according to the agreement, diesel will be purchased at a higher price than the market value. At a time when the people are under immense pressure and are frustrated, the government is planning to purchase diesel at a higher price than the market price through a corrupt deal. Is this fair? If your electricity bill increases, remember well that this corrupt deal signed with the South African company will be one of the reasons behind it. Why are they trying to purchase fuel more than the amount required for the country at a price higher than the market price? You have appointed a corrupt government. They are a curse to this nation. This government steals even when the people are suffering.
දූෂිත කොන්ත්‍රාත්තු හරහා තෙල් ගන්න යන තමුන්නාන්සලා පත් කරලා තියෙන දූෂිත ආණ්ඩුවක් රටට කොඩිවිනයක් මහ ජනතාව දුක් විඳිද්දී හොරා කන ආණ්ඩුවක්.
Convening a media briefing, the Janata Vimukti Peramuna revealed more information regarding the deal to purchase diesel to generate power. This is the homepage of the website of Makanya Ignatius's company. This is a mining company. They don't supply electricity. This is Ignatius. He is an African national. Makanya Ignatius has all of a sudden had a dream and seen that there is a power crisis in Sri Lanka. He had felt sorry for us, left his mining operations aside,
felt that he should supply fuel to Sri Lanka and directly written to the chairman of the Ceylon Electricity Board. You can imagine how sensitive he is to the issues Sri Lanka is facing. He has written to the chairman on the 9th of March. He is the one saying this. Since he was worried that his letter will not reach the chairman in time, he had written to another minister. This minister had replied on the 10th, instructing the secretary of the CEB to discuss with the representatives of Jayanta Atauda, who is the coordinator of this project, and take the necessary steps. Minister Pavitra Vanyarachi presented this as a cabinet paper to the cabinet of ministers on the 12th of March to make this purchase an unsolicited bid. The price is being set in Sri Lankan rupees. The purchase is being made at 186 rupees and 6 cents, and the exchange rate for the dollar was set at 260 rupees. Now the official value of the rupee against the dollar is 290 rupees. Then they must price it at 290 rupees. For how long are they entering into this contract? For a minimum of 12 months and a possible 60-month extension. This is why they are creating this power crisis. These are man-made disasters in this country.
හදන්නේ මේ වෙලාවේ මෙන්න මේවට. අපේ රටේ මේවා තමයි man-made disaster.
This was the situation at a Litro gas outlet in Guhagoda, Kandy today. This brawl between the employees and the customers broke out following a protest staged at the location, alleging that the outlet had stopped the distribution of gas cylinders for several days. Three people, including a police officer, were injured.
උදේ පාන්දර අපි 4ට ආවේ ගෑස් එකක් ගන්න කියලා. මෙයාලා ගේට්ටුවෙන් එළියට අත දාලා ගැහුවේ මට. පොල්ලෙන් දැන් වැදුනේ. ඒතුළ ඉඳලා ගල් පාරවල් එකපාරටම ආවා. මගේ කන්නාඩි එකක් නැතුණා. අපි යට කරගෙන යන්න ලොරිය ආවා මේ මහ ලොකු ලොරිය. පොරු අරගෙන මිනිස්සු එකතු වෙලා ආවා ඒතුළ ඉඳලා ගහන්න. දෙපාර්ශ්වයේ ගල් ගහන එකක් වැදුණා කොහෙන් වැදුණාද කියන එක දන්නේ නැහැ. මේක අතට වැදුණා ගලක්.
The gas cylinder outlet was also damaged. Officers attached to the Kandy police visited the location and spoke to the two factions. The situation was brought under control on the assurance that gas cylinders will be issued only today.
ගෑස් හම්බුණාද?
ඔව් හම්බුණා. උදේ පාන්දර 12ට මම ආවා.
Meanwhile, a group of people obstructed a lorry carrying gas cylinders and protested at Hikkadua public grounds today. The protesters allege that people who have been standing in line for over 3 days have still not been able to purchase a gas cylinder. According to our correspondent, the group of protesters blocked the Hikkadua Baddegama road for about an hour. Subsequently, gas cylinders were issued to the public under the supervision of the police and the police special task force. People staged a protest along the Matugama Horana road in Darga town as they did not receive gas cylinders today as well. The police assured the protesters that gas cylinders will be provided in the afternoon. However, as gas cylinders were not provided even by 3 this afternoon, the group resumed their protest. This is the situation that ensued when the police attempted to move the protesters from the streets. The situation was brought under control after 85 tokens were issued for people to collect their gas cylinders tomorrow morning. However, the tokens issued were not sufficient for everyone.
Meanwhile, the shortage of fuel in the market also continues.
ඔක්කොම කියන්නේ තියෙනවා තමයි කොයි විසිදුම දැන් සතියක් විතර කියන්නේ මොන බාමුව පොලින් තමයි හැමදාම පොලිම ඇමතිතුම පොලිම ඉන්නවම කට්ට තේරෙන්නේ ඉතින් රටෙන් බාගෙට බය විකුණලා කාලා තියෙන ඇමතිගොල්ලෝ.
A group of bus employees staged a strike today stating that a proper mechanism is not being implemented when distributing diesel among private buses in Norelia.
අමතර ලොරි ගෙනිහිල්ලා ඩීසල් ෆුල් කරලා ගෙනිහිල්ලා ඩීසල් කෑන් වලට අදිනවා. අපි ඩීසල් පොලිමේ ඉඳලා පොම්පේ ගන්න යනකොට අපිට ඩීසල් නැහැ.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Energy states that the fuel tanker which arrived in Sri Lanka on the 14th was released today after making a payment of $42 million. The tanker, which arrived from Singapore, was carrying 20,000 metric tons of jet fuel and 20,000 metric tons of diesel. Gum at the V-Force. For the people. The Gum at the teams distributed water bottles among the people who are languishing for hours in queues to purchase various essential items. Gum at the V-Force teams distributed water bottles among the people standing in queues in the Colombo, Kalutara and Ratnapura districts. Many donors joined hands with Gum at the V-Force for this initiative. Members of the Gum at the V-Force then collected the empty water bottles to ensure that they do not pollute the environment.
Two fundamental rights applications were filed with the Supreme Court today by the Bar Association of Sri Lanka over the present economic crisis. The petitioners are seeking orders from the Supreme Court to direct the respondents to immediately consult with all relevant stakeholders and independent experts to formulate and implement policies to provide uninterrupted access to essential services and to provide concessions in relation to prices of essential goods and services to the people, including LP gas, fuel, electricity, milk powder, medicine and food. The applications by the Bar Association notes that the failure to provide essential goods and services to the people of Sri Lanka at a reasonable price is a violation of the people's fundamental rights enshrined in the Constitution of Sri Lanka. The Attorney General, the Cabinet of Ministers, the Governor of the Central Bank, the Secretary to the Treasury, Secretaries to several ministries, the Ceylon Electricity Board, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and the State Pharmaceutical Corporation, among others, were named as respondents. The petitioners complain that Sri Lanka is currently facing an unprecedented economic and financial crisis resulting in acute shortages of fuel, electricity, gas, food, milk powder and medicine. The petitioners complain that they are compelled to come into court due to the severe shortages in essential goods and services that are considered vital for the survival and existence of the citizens of the Republic, in whom is guaranteed the fundamental right to equality, equal protection of the law and the right to life under the Constitution. The applications were filed by the President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, President's Council Salia Piris, the Deputy President, President's Council Anuramaddegoda, the Secretary Rajiv Amarasuriya, Secretary of the Bar Association Rajiv Amarasuriya, Treasurer Ranjit Pereira and the Assistant Secretary of the Bar Association Pasindu Silva.
Lekakadhikari of the Asgiriya chapter of the Siam sect, Venerable Madagama Dhammananda Thero says special attention must be paid to the agreements made with foreign countries at a time when the country is facing an economic crisis.
Our country is facing a serious crisis at the moment. Large loans taken from countries like India have hidden agendas. It is common for countries who are providing aid to other countries to expect certain things in return. It is the nature of every country in the world. Whoever comes into power, they must maintain the sovereignty of the nation. We expect that from them. We have always said that these international agreements must be shown to the Mahasangha who have been accepted by the general public. Leaders must meet us, not only when obtaining loans from other countries, but when economic projects are being implemented and when various agreements are being drafted. It seems that this does not happen properly.
Venerable Madagama Dhammananda Thero expressed these views when Venerable Battaramulle Seelaratana Thero visited the temple. Venerable Seelaratana Thero also visited the chief prelate of the Malladu chapter of the Siam sect. He also staged a silent protest in Kandy.
Chinese Foreign Minister and State Councillor Wang Yi made an unannounced visit to China last night against a backdrop where Sri Lanka signed a series of defence and investment project deals with India, who in turn provided $2.4 billion worth of financial assistance in a matter of months. He met with India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval today. Before this visit, the Chinese Foreign Minister also made a surprise stop in Afghanistan's capital Kabul to meet with the country's new Taliban rulers.
We have still ongoing friction areas. We've also made a lot of progress. Essentially, our discussion today was to how to take this forward. Clearly, the border area situation is not normal. We have a situation where peace and tranquility in the border areas has been disturbed. If you ask me, is our relationship normal today? My answer to you is no, it is not. So they have made considerable progress. I don't dispute that. In fact, I welcome that. Regarding Ukraine, Minister Wang Yi presented the Chinese understanding, the Chinese view of the developed situation there and the developments pertaining to it, and I presented the Indian view. Where we had a common element was that both of us agreed on the importance of an immediate ceasefire as well as a return to diplomacy and dialogue. We hoped that China would follow an independent policy in respect of India and not allow its policies to be influenced by other countries and other relationships. Indo-Pacific, no. Indo-Pacific itself didn't come up in our discussions.
The fact that the Chinese Foreign Minister's sudden visit to India came one day after US Under-Secretary of State for Political Affairs Victoria Nuland concluded her visit to Sri Lanka is no coincidence. The United States, India, Japan and Australia all stand for a free and open Indo-Pacific region, and India recently inked deals to provide Sri Lanka with a maritime rescue coordination centre, a floating barge and 3 Dornier maritime surveillance aircrafts. Experts are of the opinion that India will obtain the technical capabilities and technology to observe Sri Lankan seas after the agreements are implemented. Plans have also been drawn to establish a sub-observation centre in Hambantota. Under China's One Belt One Road initiative, the Hambantota port and the Colombo port city, under the concept of Spring Pearl, has been included in their access route. Against such a backdrop, the discussions between India and China regarding Sri Lanka would undoubtedly be decisive.
මේ ඇමරිකානුව එකතු වෙලා මේ රට විනාශ කරනවා මේ ඇමරිකානුව දෙන්න මේ රටෙන් පරවා හරින්න කියලා අපි දෙවියන්ගෙන් ඉල්ලලා
A protest organized by the Samagi Jana Balavege was held in Ampara today. The protest commenced with a religious ritual and a march. The motherland of Gotabe and Basil is America. We urge them to return to their motherland.
In the face of multiple crises, what has been the response of the general public? We'll bring you the details after this short commercial break.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
During the past few days, we brought to you reports about the people on their own volition coming out and protesting against the rising cost of living and many other acute shortages in essential goods right here in Sri Lanka. Silent protests of the people are taking place across the country today as well. The protests are held opposing the rising cost of living and mismanagement of the economy of Sri Lanka.
A silent protest was held at the Kohuala Junction today.
We are all standing here objecting to what is happening. It's a silent protest. We are not noisy or we are not going to create problems. We are all equal. All the citizens of this country are equal. They are flying abroad, having enjoyable times at our cost. Who's paying for all this? It is the Sri Lankan public who's paying.
A silent protest was held in Jaila as well. The protesters opposed the harsh living standards of the general public.
ජනතාව විසින් ආණ්ඩුවට දැනෙන්න මේ පණිවිඩයක් මේක බැහැයි කියන දේ දැන් හොඳට ඔප්පු වෙලා හමාරයි. මොකද මොළ හතක් ආවා. නමුත් මිනිස්සුන්ට ආවේ හෙන හතක් දැන්.
ඔය ඉන්න 225කුයි ඒ ඉන්න හෙන්චයිෝ ඩීකුයි නඩත්තු කරන එක විතරයි මේක ඇත්තටම කරලා තියෙන මුළු රටම. නාගේ හම්බට සෙට් එකක් මේ රට නඩත්තු කරනවා. ඒක ඇත්තටම මෙතන සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ.
A satyagraha organized by the United National Party was held in Colombo today. The satyagraha was led by party leader Ranil Wickremesinghe.
The satyagraha was held under the theme "The Satyagraha to Brighten a Dark Future." A group of protesters who marched to the Hyde Park engaged in the satyagraha. A pledge to establish a national policy was made at the event.
People in the country have been taking to the streets against the rising cost of living. Political movements also have been taking to the streets demanding the government for solutions. Now, among these many factions that are raising up their voice against what is happening in the country, the youth are also stepping up. The youth arm of the 43rd Brigade staged a protest in Colombo today.
The youth arm of the 43rd Brigade staged a protest opposite the US Embassy in Colombo today. They demanded that the United States take back their citizens who are currently ruling Sri Lanka. We have nothing against the people of America. This is our motherland. The people of this land are suffering. These rulers must be held responsible for this mess. Your government has given citizenship to those with power who are behind this economic crisis. Take these individuals back to your country. This is the voice of the Sri Lankan people. The protest is being staged under the theme, "Let us stay in our country, you leave, let's join together and chase them."
We don't have anything to eat. We don't have gas. What are they doing? We will only be here for several months. But what about our children?
Meanwhile, representatives of the 11 constituent parties met with the representatives of civil organizations and held discussions at the Sunitra Devi Pirivana in Papiliana. Venerable Professor Madhagoda Betisa Thero had organized the meeting. Several civil organizations who supported the government during the election took part in the meeting.
The government has obtained a maximum of 156 votes in parliament. 3 ministers have been removed or resigned. This brings the number to 153. There are 30 MPs in our party. If we deduct that number, the total comes to 123. If the amount of MPs you have in parliament becomes 112, you lose the majority. The difference between 123 and 112 is 11. More than 11 parliamentarians from the SLPP have expressed their support to us. We will show our strength at the right time.
The Brazilian Order of Rio Branco Award was conferred posthumously on late Mr. R. Rajamahendran, the former chairman of the Capital Maharaja Group. The event was held last evening.
The Order of Rio Branco is awarded to recognize and celebrate the merits of Brazilian and foreign individuals who have significantly contributed to the promotion of Brazil's relations with the world. Chairman of the Capital Maharaja Group, Mr. Shashi Rajamahendran, accepted the award last evening. Former banker and renowned businessman Jayanta Pereira was also awarded the accolade.
Former parliamentarian Ranjan Ramanayaka pleaded guilty in the second contempt of court case filed against him. He pleaded guilty to the charge when he was produced before the Supreme Court today. Pleading guilty, Ranjan Ramanayake said that if the Supreme Court is of the opinion that his statement insulted court, he would unconditionally apologize for the statement he made. Ranjan Ramanayake also said that he did not in any way intend to insult the court when he made this statement at a media institution. The situation in Ukraine continues to make global headlines. The conflict between Russia and Ukraine has sent shockwaves across the world. Some even blame Sri Lanka's situation on the Russia-Ukraine crisis. Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister said that she hopes some civilians trapped in Mariupol will be allowed to leave the besieged southeastern port city today. Mariupol, which is normally home to about 400,000 people, has been under heavy bombardment from Russian forces for weeks now. Those trapped there have been sheltered in basements with little food, power and running water. Meanwhile, President Joe Biden says that he wants Russia out of the G20. The G20, or the Group of 20, is the intergovernmental forum of 19 countries and the European Union that works on major global issues.
G20. I raised the possibility if that can't be done, then we should, in my view, ask to have both Ukraine be able to attend the meetings, basically Ukraine being able to attend the G20 meeting and observe. This is an international responsibility. The United States is a leader, one of the leaders in the international community, has an obligation to be engaged and do all we can to ease the suffering and pain of innocent women and children and men, for that matter, throughout Ukraine, and those who have made it across the border. I plan on attempting to see those folks.
Biden also said at the news conference that any potential chemical weapons attack by Russia would trigger a response in kind. He said he raised the issue yesterday with other world leaders. Biden made the comments during a press conference yesterday in Brussels following a series of urgent NATO meetings on the Russian invasion of Ukraine. On Wednesday, Russia's ambassador to Indonesia said Russian President Vladimir Putin plans to attend the next G20 summit in Indonesia later this year to focus on economic problems. China has backed Russia's continued presence in the G20, calling it an important member.
Sri Lanka's economic crisis comes at a time when Sri Lanka is also facing massive pressure from world powers. At the beginning of the year, if you remember, Sri Lanka faced massive pressure from the United Nations regarding Sri Lanka's human rights record. Now, the allegations leveled against Sri Lanka include humanitarian crimes that were committed in the north during the time of the war. Of course, various factions, including those here at home, highlighted the need for a homegrown solution to this issue. Now, dialogue is an important part in resolving a conflict, and dialogue between local parties to this issue is very important. The delayed meeting between parliamentarians of the Tamil National Alliance and President Gotabaya Rajapaksa was finally held today, and it got positive responses from the global community as well.
Meanwhile, the MPs of the Tamil National Alliance met with President Gotabaya Rajapaksa at the President's office earlier today. Representatives of the Lanka Tamil Arsu Katchi and the People's Liberation Organization of Tamil Ilam, or the PLOT, joined the discussion. The TELO, which is the constituent party of the Tamil National Alliance, has not attended the meeting with the President. The discussion lasted nearly 3 hours today.
I'm sure we can negotiate the issues that you all have, issues that I can solve immediately. I will do so, but if there are things that needs further discussion that we have to negotiate. When I was elected, I said I am the president for the whole country, and irrespective of ethnicity or religious differences, I will serve equally all the citizens of this country. Just want to invite you all to work with us, with the government. Politically it's different. Politically you can take any stand, but for the people of the area, we will work together. I'm ready for that. The government is ready for that.
We commence this discussion to find a solution to the national issue in this country through a new constitution. Professor G.L. Piri says that a report of a specialist committee has been received and it is under the process of being translated. He said the report will be given after 2 months. We accepted certain actions that can be done immediately. US Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Julie Chung, says the United States welcomes today's meeting between President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Tamil political representatives today. In a tweet, the US Ambassador said the United States encourages continued dialogue and is committed to the prosperity and security of all Sri Lankans.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News on TV1 for tonight. Follow details of these stories and more. You can log on to our award-winning website www.newsfirst.lk and also follow us on our social media platforms. Our sign language interpreter for tonight was Brian De Cruz. I'm Charlene Benedict for News First, where the people come first. Take care. God bless.